Shalom. There's um there's there's a lot of things that's been on my spirit heavy. And as we draw closer to the return of our King, it is highly important that we all come to the complete knowledge of the truth and be of like mind and one unity in mind and thought. This is highly important. And, we have so many brothers and sisters outside, um, not outside the awakening, but outside of the complete knowledge of the truth. And there's so many pieces that are missing, right? And there's pieces missing concerning linguistics. There's pieces missing concerning the true scriptures. There's pieces missing concerning history. There's pieces missing even concerning who Esau is. Okay, there's multiple missing pieces, and these pieces in the last days have been revealed. But many people like comfort. They're comfortable with they're comfortable with what they feel like they know already. And they do not give room for growth. What was told to me last year at the Feast of Booths, right? Or what you call the Feast of Tabernacles. It was told to me that for those who grow will go. And for those who do not grow, will not go. Okay. So this is a very important thing when we come to understand the truth and coming into the truth. It's very important. It's highly important. And we have so many, even in this awakening, that fight and struggle against the truth, which causes a disunity, which causes, confusion, which causes Babylon. Babylon actually means confusion, but it also means the gate of gods. Okay. So I want to highlight something real quick, and I want us to look at something. I want us to look at Ephesians chapter 4, verses 7 through 16. And I really want us to see this and understand this, because there is a hierarchy. There is a hierarchy in the kingdom. In the kingdom, there is a government, and that government is ran in a particular order. Of course, Yahweh comes first. Secondly, the king, Yahweh Shai. Then under them are the pastor, the preacher, the apostle, the pastor, the preacher, the apostle, the teacher, the prophets. Those come under the father and the king. And we have to understand this is important. So when someone who is a teacher is telling you, you may have made an error somewhere, and to correct that error, it's not for them, it's for you. It's to help you. That is the whole point of that, right? And I hear many people say, well, I'm not going to listen to a man. But if I'm not mistaken, Yahweh chose men to write these scriptures. Am I not correct? If I'm not mistaken, Yahweh chose men to lead the children of Israel out of multiple captivities. Am I not correct? So we have to understand that Yahweh uses men just as well as Hashatan used men. So the key is we have to be able to know the difference. We have to be able to rightfully divide the difference, right? So this means that we have come to a place where we have become in some words, prideful, right? We have become some in some words prideful, and in some ways prideful when information arises that goes against the things that you thought were true or things that you believed were true. And I've seen it done on many occasions because I've spoken to many of Hebrew Israelites. I've spoken to many of people outside the awakening. I've spoken to many people who are not of our nation and are outside the awakening. And the common thing that I run across is, well, I know this, but the scriptures say you don't know things as you ought to know them. So this means, how would they know? But also the scriptures say, how would they know without a preacher? How would they know without a teacher? How would they know without a seer? How would they know without a prophet? How would they know without an apostle? And there are some in these last days, not many, very few, very, very few, who hold the true doctrine that is taught by Hamashiach. Okay. And not everyone out there that is teaching was called and ordained by Yahweh to be teaching. And this is something that is of high importance too. This is why we have to rightly divide the difference, just like we have to rightly divide the word of truth. So let's look at Ephesians 4 and 7, starting at 7. But to each of us blessings were given according to the measure of Hamashiach's gift. That is why he says, when he ascended on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts to men. What is this gift he gave? This gift that he gave is authority, which we'll later see in verse 11. Then he says what? He says, now, what can this phrase he ascended mean? Except that he also first descended into the lower parts of the earth. And he gave, verse 10. He who descended is the one who ascended far above all heavens, that he might fulfill all things. Verse 11. Here is the authority that is given. Here is the authority that he has passed on to very few people inside this awakening. Okay. He says what in verse 11? And he gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some preachers of the message of the kingdom of Yahweh, and some pastors and teachers. And what is this for? We're going to see in verse 12. For the perfecting of the saints, for the perfecting of the saints, perfecting of the called out ones, perfecting of the ones that Yahweh will set up in the very end time to rule over the nations, and will go into the millennial kingdom as kings and priests and will be known as that. Okay. So let's look at what he says. He says, for the perfecting of the saints, for the working of the ministry, for the building of the house of Yahweh, which is the body of Mashiach. So this building of the house is synonymous with the perfection of the saints, as we can see. So if this perfection of the saints is important, just as the building of the house of Yahweh is important, then we must understand that to be united in thought and mind is is paramount. And if we get to a point where we can all become united in mind, thought, and heart, then what does this mean? This means that we have gotten to a place where we can fully use the measure that has been given to us by the authority and the power of the King. Okay? So let's see verse 13. He says, until we all come to the same unity of the faith and of the same knowledge the Son of Yahweh has, into a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness, perfection of Mashiach. Okay. So what he's saying here is highly important, and we need to pay attention to this, because he's telling you that we all should come to the same thing. We should all come to the same name. We should all come to the same doctrine. There shouldn't be a doctrine over here. There shouldn't be a doctrine taught over there that is clashing with one another or contending with one another. We all should be keeping the feast days at the same time, not at different times. We all should be keeping the Shabbat together, not some following the moon, keeping the Shabbat, which I've heard that is a thing, which should not be. Because there are many scriptures that tell us to stay away from the moon and the observance of the moon to set the feast days. Okay? Many scriptures. And we're not going to get into that today. But for the sake of what we're talking about, these things need to be understood. These things need to be spoken of. These things need to be nipped in the bud. Why? It's so we can all get to the same unity of the faith. But until we do that, what? The house is divided against itself. And what did the king say about a house being divided against itself? It cannot stand. So if a house is divided against itself and we expect to find salvation in that, that's automatically wrong. That goes against all scripture. That goes against all things that have been written for our learning. Okay. So let's read 13 again. Until we all of us, all of Yasharayel, all of the Hebrew Israelites, all of us, come to what? The same unity of the faith and of the same knowledge the Son of Yahweh has. So there's a specific way that the truth is supposed to be learned. And if it's outside of that order, then it is out of order. Which Yahweh has an order for everything. And we know this. This is a fact. And we don't even have to go down the long list of these things. But we know that there is a set order to everything. So when there's a set order to the learning of the truth. The first order of business is for you to wake up to your identity. That is the first order of business. The second order of business is for you to learn proper names and improper names, terms, and titles. That is the second order of business. The third order of business is for you to understand the law and the prophets correctly. That is the third order of business. The fourth order of business is for you to understand the doctrines and to be able to know which doctrines are correct and which doctrines are not. That is the fourth order of business. The fifth order of business, This is key. The fifth order of business is to keep those things which you have learned and practice them. That's the kicker. That's the T. So let's look at this. Let's look at 13 again. Until we all come to the same unity of the faith and of the same knowledge the Son of Yahweh has, unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness, perfection of Mashiach. What does this mean? Total righteousness. So this means total righteousness. This total righteousness means not the mixture of righteousness and evil, which was told to Eve in the Garden of Eden, or some say in the Israeli Eden. What happened there was a mixture of righteousness and evil, which is practiced today in the awakening and outside of the awakening. Right? So let's continue. What does it say? Verse 14. No longer are we to be children tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the what? By the sleight of men. Okay. So our enemies and our oppressors knew that this day was coming. They knew that this awakening was coming. They anticipated it. And how did they do so? By setting up snares and traps. This is why it says it will be a stumbling block, but it will also be beneficial. And the reason why it's a stumbling block, because it's a stumbling block to those who do not believe. And the reason why it will be beneficial, because it will be beneficial to those who do believe. It says here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. So let's look at that. No longer are we to be children, tossed to and fro, and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, by which they lie. By which they lie. In wait to deceive, instead speaking the truth in love, we may grow up in all things. Hold on, stop. Now, in the beginning of this segment, I remember saying what was told to me, those who grow will go. And the growth is important because guess what? We are referred to as trees bearing fruit. So if these trees cannot grow up and mature the proper way that they are supposed to, then guess what? They cannot bear the necessary fruit. And what is the necessary fruit? It tells us also in this same chapter, when we go back and we look at verse 12 through 13, for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the building of the house of Yahweh, which is the body of Mashiach, until we all come to the same unity of the faith and of the same knowledge the Son of Yahweh has. So this is the growth. This is what we're to grow into. Yes, they may be big shoes to fill. I get it. Yes, they may be, it may be challenging. Yes, I get it. Yes, there's multiple pieces of information out there. Yes, this is true. We live in the age of information. This is why there will not be an excuse, because we live in the age of information. It's simple. You got a computer in your back pocket. You can just beep boop, and find it. Find the information. Now, I suggest actually going to books and reading, because books cannot be manipulated as easily as digital information. Digital information, this is why everything has become digital, for the fact that they can manipulate the information. For them to manipulate a book, they have to go through mounds of court processes and court hearings and all of these things just to change one sentence. Okay? So this is important, right? And to add to that, we as a people were not allowed to read during a certain time in history. And when we weren't allowed to read, and if we did get caught reading, our opposable thumbs will be cut off. Why? It was because it was needed to flip pages. Okay. So they thought, I can flip pages with these two fingers. Okay. I don't necessarily need my thumb, but it makes it slightly easier. Okay. But those same books that we were barred and banned from reading in those times, we have access to those books today. And we have the ability to read in which we did not have before. So why not utilize it? Why not open up books such as dictionaries, Strong's, Bible dictionaries? Like, it's so much information out there that has been glossed over and has not been looked at. Why? It's because, a white man wrote it. Well, if you really pay attention to what's being said, they tell on themselves. And that's a key. That's a jewel for you on this beautiful Shabbat. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself. I am Israel Porter, other known as Yashariah Badaya. Right? So, but by the way, that's my real birth name. I can show you ID. I feel I don't have to, but I can show you my ID, and that name is on my ID, on my birth certificate. It's everywhere, right? Okay, so back to the script. What does he say? What does he say? Verse 15. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we may grow up in all things unto him who is our head, Mashiach. So me saying what I'm saying to you today, which if you truly have the spirit of discernment, then you hear the care and concern in what I'm saying. You hear the love in what I'm saying. You know that I'm not coming from a place of you better do, and I'm not coming like that. Because I was always taught you get more flies with honey than you do. Well, you get more bees with honey than you do with feces. Okay. And the whole reason why I'm addressing these things is because it is not addressed. I hear some teachers in this awakening say that, it's okay to keep the feast days whenever you keep them, as long as we're making a corporate effort and all of these things. No, that's not what the scripture says. So for someone to say those things, they are going against what the very book of Yahweh is saying, which is not called the Bible. It's called the book of Yahweh. Okay? So let's look at this. It says from from whom, from whom the whole body being fitly jointed and brought together. And brought together. Fitly jointed. Brought together. And how is this bringing together going to happen? Some call the second Exodus, which is more correctly known as the regathering, the restoration of the house of Yasharayil, which in the Israeli they say Yisrael. Yisrael. So says what? For whom the whole body being fitly jointed and brought together by that which every joint supplies, according to the effective working in the measure of every part. So everyone has a part to play. Some's office are not to be preachers. Some's office are not to be evangelists. Some are not to be apostles. Some are not to be prophets and seers. Some are not to be teachers and preachers and pastors. Some are not. Some are for the healing. Some are for healing. Some are for casting out of the spirits. Some are for nurturing the children. Some are for encouraging the people. So let's look at that again. From whom the whole body, being fitly jointed and brought together by that which every joint supplies, according to the effective working in the measure of every part, causes what? Here we go again. Growth of the body itself for the building of the house of Yahweh in love. In Ahab. In love. I see many Hebrew Israelites on the corner not saying it from a place of love. They're saying it from a place of hate, in which I do not affiliate with any camp or associate myself with any camp. I don't associate myself with many of these so-called teachers and leaders of this awakening. If anything, I am against them. And not saying that they're not saying that they're not doing a great service, but in the same breath, they're doing a disservice because they're teaching many things that are perpetuating the error still. There's still error in a lot of things that these Hebrew Israelite teachers are teaching, whether in the camps or outside the camps. It says what? Let's read 16 again. From whom the whole body, being fitly joined and brought together by that which every joint supplies, according to the effective working in the measure of every part, causes the growth of the body itself for the building of the house of Yahweh in love. Oh, how I wish you knew how much I love you all and want to see you all succeed and flourish in the kingdom of our Father and in the kingdom of our King, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. Oh, would I love to see that. Oh, would I love to see all of us together on feast days, all of us, every last Hebrew Israelite out there, see us all together on feast days, keeping the feast days in unity and in harmony, in love, which these are the feasts of love. So if we're keeping these feasts in any other time other than the allotted time, then there's going to be issues. And I'm pretty sure we've seen some of those issues arise with certain people in this awakening, whether in the camps or outside. So now let's look at Timothy. Let's look at the first letter of Timothy. Okay? And let's look at chapter 2. And this is precept, family. This is precept. Watch this. Look at what Shawwal says. He says, therefore I exhort first of all that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made on behalf of all men. And this doesn't necessarily mean all men. I'm sorry to bust many of your bubbles, but we are not all equal. All men on this planet are not all equal, because all men on this planet did not come from Adam. And that is a fact. Then he says what? On behalf of kings and for all who are in authority. Going back to what we just read, who's the authority in the government, in the kingdom of Yahweh? The apostle, the preacher, the teacher, the pastor, the prophet. That's the authority. So if that is the authority, then this is the authority that it's talking about. It's not talking about this beastly system's authority, no, because this beastly system is not ran by Yahweh. It's allowed by Yahweh, but it is not ran by Yahweh. It is ran by Hashatan, or whom you say is Satan, the devil. She is running this beastly system. She is. Yes, I said she. On behalf of kings and for all who are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceful life in all holiness and reverence. Reverencing the authority that Yahweh has set up in his government. Reverencing the authority that Yahweh has set up in his kingdom. This is important. It's highly important that we understand these foundational things. And yet if we if we lay the bricks and stones of the foundation correctly, anything that is built on that foundation will not crumble and fall. He says in reverence, verse 3, for this is right and acceptable in the sight of Yahweh our Savior. Verse 4, who wants all men to be saved, who wants all of Israel to be saved, who wants all of Yasharal to be saved, and come to the full knowledge of the truth. There it goes again. There it goes again. The full knowledge of the truth. The full knowledge of the truth. We know that sometimes it's good to go over the fundamentals. Why? It's because the fundamentals sharpen you, right? They sharpen you. Many of times, these, and I hate to use this example, and I hate to use these people as the example, but I have to, in order for you to understand. These sports stars, they go and they practice the fundamentals over and over and over and over. And this is how they become professionals in their craft. Okay. So let's take that same concept and apply it here. There's many foundational truths that we have to understand and we must understand in these last days. There is a hell. I've been there. I can rightfully testify that I have seen the gates of Sheol. I have seen the gates of hell. I have literally walked through hell with the King on my right hand side, covered by his glory, walking through hell. And that is not a place any of you want to be. I would go a little bit deeper into some of the details, but it's not for me to do at this time. Just trust and believe me when I say this. I don't have the capacity to lie or make up anything, because I know the destruction that waits for me if I do such a thing. This is why I double and triple check all the information that I post before I post it, because I have to be sure. As a seer, I'm not supposed to be wrong about anything. I have to be on top of the game at all times. Why? Because that I'm teaching you these things, and if I'm telling you anything incorrect, then you're going to be learning that very thing, and you're going to be passing that very thing on to, you get the picture? First Corinthians. Let's look at First Corinthians. First Corinthians 8. And now concerning foods offered to gods, Elohim, Alahayah, we know that we all possess knowledge. Knowledge causes one to grow, and love builds up the house of Yahweh. Yeah, I know you're probably saying that's not what it says. No, but that is what the original Hebraic text says. That is exactly how it would read in this English language, the original Hebraic letter of Corinthians, which it was originally written in Hebrew. Okay. So let's look at that again. It says, now concerning foods offered to gods, Alahayam, Elohim, in the Israeli, we know that we all possess knowledge. Knowledge causes one to grow, and love builds up the house of Yahweh. And if anyone thinks he knows anything, verse 2, passage 2, he yet knows nothing as he ought to know. So you may know something, but it's not in the way that you should know it according to the actual factual. according to sound doctrine. I know that may be hard for some of you to hear, because believe me in you, when I first came into the knowledge of the truth, I was very angry, because, you know, how could it be that for so long I've been lied to? How could it be that they've gotten away with this? This was my very thoughts then. And I realized, I said, okay, if that was a lie, then there's many other things that were lies. And now I want to start uncovering those lies. I want to start uncovering those things. I want to start taking deeper looks at words and titles. I want to start looking at lexicology and etymology. I want to start looking at these things. I want to start going deeper into the construction of this modern Hebrew. I want to go deeper into, you kind of get that? So it's never okay to stay on the surface, because we are to know the deep things of Yah. But then again, the deep things of Yah are only reserved for those who love Yahweh. And how do we love him? By keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. See, the king was asked, what is the greatest law of all? And he said, loving Yahweh your Father with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, knowing that Yahweh is one. And he said the second is just like it, to love your brother as you love yourself, to love your neighbor, kinsman, because neighbor means kinsman. Let's not ever get that confused. Loving your kinsman as yourself. And why did he say that? Because he was talking about the other 10 tribes. Because at that time, only the 3 tribes were in that area, were in that part of the world at that time. So it's very rewarding when you find out the truth in the order that you're supposed to find out the truth, right? And, you know, sometimes we end up trying to go ahead of that, or we try to go around things. But you do yourself a disservice when you do such a thing, right? Verse 2, and if anyone thinks that he knows anything, he yet knows nothing as he ought to know. So I hear many people in this awakening who say they are teachers, still teaching in the name of God, and in the title of God, and in the name of Lord, and the title of Lord, and all of these damnable titles, which they are. Still using the term Christ, which is damnable, because Christ is Christ's soul, which goes back to sun worship, soul and this and all of that. Anything that these Greek people have done to change the true scriptures, we must undo and start using the root language, which is the ancient Hebrew there, which the ancient Hebrew is Mashiach. The disciples would have never, ever, ever called the Messiah a Christ. That was a contemptuous term, and it was only used 3 times in the Holy Scripts. Only used 3 times. And each time it was used in a disrespectful manner. So why are people among this awakening still using that word? Still using a Latin term, Christianos. We have to all come to the complete knowledge of the truth in unity. We have to. And if we do not do this, then the ones who do not do this will be a part of the 2/3 of Yasharayim that will be cut off. Don't be in that number. Don't be in that number. Do not. If any man, verse 3, chapter 8, Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, chapter 8, verse 3. But if any man loves Yahweh, this one is known by him. Go back. Go back to verse 2. Verse 2. If anyone thinks that he knows anything, he yet knows nothing as he ought to know. And that may not seem disturbing to you, but that is very disturbing to me. And that goes back to Revelation, chapter 12, where the birthing of the child and Hashatan is sitting there. It says what? 12:4. Revelation 12:4. And her tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them out to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to be delivered. Wait. The woman is the house of Yahweh. The woman is the assemblies of the house of Yahweh, which the king talks about earlier on in the book of Revelation when we look at chapter 2 and 3. Which the main thing that he has against his house is idolatry, is God worship, is the worship of Elohim, is the worship of Allahayam. This Bible dictionary right here from 1975 proves so. This is an old trusty Bible dictionary that I had in incarceration. And this Bible dictionary right here, it's the real deal. It's the Wycliffe Bible Dictionary, 1975. You might want to get you a copy. And unfortunately, on Amazon, I ordered this was the very last copy. Okay. Hopefully that you'll be able to find it somewhere. But the main thing he has against the house of Yahweh is Allahayam worship. The worship of demons, which Allahayam means gods and demons. It is used in the plural sense. That was its original use before we adopted the word after going into the land of Canaan, which the Canaanites were worshiping Allah, Allah, which I heard someone say in this awakening that Allah was originally a female and her name was Alat, but Alat was the daughter of Allah. Gotta get the facts right. But yet and still, this comes all the way from Babylon, and it made its way to Canaan into the house of Yashariah. And this is why we fail. This is why we fail out of covenant with the Most High Yahweh, the Most High Yah. This is why we fail out of covenant. Adopting things that we ought not. And what? And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to be delivered in order to devour her son as soon as he was born. What is this talking about? The purpose of the house of Yashariah being woken up at this time is for the uniting, the restoration of the house of Yashariah, or in the Israeli Yisrael, or in English Israel. That is the whole purpose. And until we can learn to submit to one another, until we can learn to humble ourselves among one another and understand who is called into these offices of authority, then we're going to forever be at odds with each other. And then what's going to happen? We're going to prolong the coming of the king. He said, if I am delayed, oh. But if he is delayed, it's going to be our doing. Just like his hanging on the stake was our doing. Come to the complete knowledge of the truth, Yashariah. I'm here to help you. I just want to help you. I wholeheartedly want to help you. And it hurts me. I've cried multiple times. Because it's like, how come you don't get it? How come you don't see it? And it bothers me. It bothers me. It truly bothers me. It bothers me, and it it bothers me. It bothers me. And the reason why it bothers me so much is because I care so much. I care so much for your spiritual well-being. I care so much for your understanding. I care so much for the knowledge that you have, and that be it close to the king. I care. I care. I care more than you will ever know. And there's many things that, there's many things that has been revealed that I can't share with you. And I would love to, but I can't. Because you can't even understand the foundational things that are very simple. And if not that, then you would definitely not be able to understand the deep things that has been given to me to give to you. Which at this time I'm not permitted to give to you because you're not ready. You haven't matured enough yet. You're still babies on milk. Most of us, and this excludes me, and I could honestly say this, most of us are reading from a rendering of the holy text that has been manipulated and thinking that it has accuracy, but it does not. The key and point is to get close to the original Hebrew as possible in English translation, because guess what? That's what we all read. So I can't sit up here and make a Hebrew translation of the original and actually make it in Hebrew and give it to you because you don't understand Hebrew. Ancient Hebrew at that. A lot of you think the Israeli language is ancient Hebrew. It is not. There's many things that you think that it's not. There's many things that you have learned that it is not. And I just want you to wake up and see it before it's too late. Because the doors of the ark are closing. They're closing as we speak. We see the time is winding down. We see prophecy speeding itself up day by day. Day by day, we see this thing. And in the words of Smokey the Bear, only you can prevent forest fires. And I'm saying that because only you can make the decision to follow the true doctrine. And the key about that is, if we look at the king, because he was our example, if we look at Yahweh Shai Hamashiach, who is erroneously called Jesus, right? If we look at him and we look at his journey and we look at his ministry, he never, ever associated with any of the camps of his day, any of the sects, the SECT, not SEX. Get your mind out the gutter on this Holy Shabath. Get your mind out the gutter. Sect, sects, okay? And he didn't follow any of them. He didn't associate himself with none of them. And there was a reason for that. And it is highly documented that what he followed was close, very close to the Sadducees and very close to the Pharisees, very close. But the main difference was his outlook on the apocalypse and eschatology. And what we have today, we have a Sadduceic spirit and Pharisaic spirit among the house of Israel, among the house of Yashariah today. This is why he says, wide is the way that leads to destruction, but narrow is the path that leads to righteousness and salvation. And there are few who find it. I'm going to share this with you because it's on my heart to share this with you. I had a dream, not last night, but the night, I think 2 nights ago. And in this dream, there was this field. It was like a dusty field, like in the desert, right? And people were going on about their business, doing whatever. And, Me, I'm preaching the truth and I'm telling the truth and I'm, trying to explain certain things to certain people, and very few heads lifted up to hear what I was saying. So much so that those few heads started to walk and come towards me. The others just continued to do what they were doing originally. And then the scene of the dream switches. We're in like the city and there's millions of people, and now destruction has come and everybody's like, what's going on? What's going on? And they're just at a loss of understanding. They don't get it. They don't see what's going on. And it's funny because in the dream prior, I was telling them, hey, look, this is coming. This is coming. Look, turn back to Yahweh. Follow the law, statutes, and commandments. And they just like, oh, whatever, this guy, he don't know what he's talking about. And I literally see that very thing happening today. I literally see that very thing happening today. I hope this message has touched your heart. I hope that it's brightened your understanding. And I hope that it got you to understand the importance of unity among our people. Something of which we've never had in full before. But now is the time. And like I said, I'm here to help you. You can always reach out to me. Always. I'm always here for you until the King says otherwise. Until the Father says otherwise, I'm always here for you. And I mean that from the top of my heart, not the bottom, because that's where all the gunk is. I love you all. Through the authority and through the love of the King, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, I love you all. And to the glory of our Father, Yahweh, Shalom.